Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'd like to welcome today's panelists. Emir Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Professor Anthony Killer, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Modele Sharafa Yusuf, Arise News Analyst. And Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos. Well, it's good to have a full panel today. And it's good to see you back, Modele.
Good to be here.
Yes, you've been away for a while. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. We begin with a developing story in Nigeria, where a pipeline explosion this morning has left residents of Abule area of Lagos State scampering for safety. The cause of the explosion, which occurred at about 9:10 a.m. today, is yet to be ascertained as of the time of filing this report. While casualty figure is still unknown, first responders are said to be on their way to the site of the explosion. Very sad incident there in Abule, around the trade fair in the Festac area of Lagos. I mean, the whole town has been panicking since morning. And the latest report that I read is that 11 bodies had been discovered. But even more frightening is that, I mean, the whole neighborhood is devastated. You can see the video there. And in particular, a girls' secondary school. We have reports of, the young girls being trapped in their hostels. And, parents are, very anxious. And, we just hope that the emergency agencies will be able to get on top of the situation. In the morning, first we were told that it was a case of pipeline explosion. But the NNPC area coordinator and the Director General of the Lagos State Emergency Services Agency, they both said that this is not a case of pipeline vandalism. Some other people have said it's a case of gas explosion. We hope that the investigation will be carried out. But whatever it is, what has happened is really very frightening, and steps need to be taken to make sure that this kind of thing does not occur again, because it happens so frequently.
Yeah.
But Modele, yes.
It does happen so frequently, and for me, the most concerning thing is the fact that we don't have an emergency response number that people can call when this kind of thing happens. I heard an official a while ago saying, if anything happens, call 0803333. I was thinking to myself, how do I remember that in case of an emergency? And these numbers change from location to location, from city to city. So if there is an emergency, people don't even know who to call. So they tend to try to take some remedial action. I saw on social media this morning that particular secondary school that you're talking about, it was people in the neighborhood who actually took the roof off one of the buildings and were trying to evacuate the girls. When people know that they can't call the emergency service, sometimes some of these interventions do more harm than good, because it's not really their work.
They're not equipped to do it.
They're not equipped to do it. So, and they're standing around because they're trying to make themselves useful. They're obstructing the emergency services themselves. We just need to coordinate better the emergency response mechanisms, because this, as you said, this happens so very frequently. And it is that 6-7 hours after this explosion, we still don't have an idea. We're not sure what has caused this. I also find that very disturbing.
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Lagos State for many years has had 112 and 767. I think part of, and also at least from my experience, my challenge with those hotlines is that because they work with a script, sometimes those on the other end don't use their initiative in asking questions. So I've had situations where I call and I'm saying, I'm on 3rd Mainland Bridge and I've seen a dead body. And the next question is, what's the nearest bus stop? I'm like,
Okay,
I just said I'm on Third Mainland Bridge. There is no bus stop on Third Mainland Bridge. But she's reading a script, so she's not processing what I just told her. So Lagos State, in fairness, is actually quite good with those numbers. I think 112 is meant to be a national number. I'm not quite sure how many states are connected to that grid, but I've seen it being advertised as a national number. But I think more is our understanding of what an emergency means. So you see something begins, and our default is more expectation rather than trying to get people help. And in the process, unfortunately, things get aggravated. I mean, the gentleman that Ngozi featured just before our time slot was saying that they needed to get the military involved to clear the area. Because they're telling people, move back for your own good. And people were not willing to, as we're watching. It's almost a spectator
People
sport.
tend to be more interested in taking
exactly pictures. Yes, I was there.
videos.
So I think that, for me, is really where the orientation needs to come more, around safety, around the fact that if you see an accident, if there's no immediate danger, you actually might do the passenger more harm by trying to yank them out of the car, because you might dislocate a bone, a back.
Professor Killer?
Well, I think the key word there is reorientation. Orientation. Yeah. And what we really need to think about is that we are an underdeveloped country, not a developed country, an underdeveloped country, We need to reorient our minds to know that in underdeveloped situations, what we need is innovation and planning. And without looking at the very big system, we need to reorient our minds of young people, of everybody, to look at challenges and victories, little victories. A group of people should today get together and devise a means of finding a not more than 4-digit number that can be used nationally for emergencies. And then that's step one.
I think in Lagos, the number is 767.
And 112.
There should be a national one. And it should
is the
be
national one. So, for example, Rivers is connected, under Amici, Rivers was connected to 112.
112. Yeah. Now, the point now is that everybody should know. So the next step should be make it known, awareness. That's reorientation. And perhaps another thing we can do whilst we're talking about reorientation is actually go back to the fundamentals of first aid. We need to, at some point in our schools and everywhere, in our churches and in mosques, take time to teach people what to do in times of crisis. It's a cultural thing that we need to imbibe that becomes truly part of us, and it can save a lot.
And maybe also something about the building code.
Indeed.
You know, in some other countries, you can't have only one entrance and one exit point in a building. Because as part of the reports we had from that school, we were told that in the hostel, the girls could not run to safety because there was just only one exit point.
It's because we don't have a planning culture. Because we don't
there's a national building code.
Yeah, there is, but generally, you see, people, the same mindset for which people would perhaps violate the red light if there's no police officer, or not wear the seatbelt if nobody's watching. We have not really imbibed the idea of this is why we do things, persuasion.
But I don't want it to be a peculiar Nigerian problem. Because anywhere in the world, if there are no rules and no enforcement, people will go amok. So we have a building code that's not enforced, or people find ways to get around it. So even if, and that's the thing about this whole failure of governance, even from your own self-enlightened self-interest, that you know that if I build a building and something happens, it's good to have more than one entrance, just so I can be safe.
No, you're right. But I argue that a lot of people don't know.
Professor Abule, you wanted to intervene earlier.
I'm only just talking about the maintenance culture of Nigeria. People have seen, but by what I'm hearing, it seems to be pipeline explosion. Moving from Abule to Surulere, somebody has just mentioned that. Which means it's still this NNPC pipeline something. For now, it said that we are not very sure, but we can suspect that line of thought. If maintenance has been on 3 months or 4 months thereabout, people would be in position to know something like this is going to happen and try to prevent it before happening. As far as I'm concerned, calling 199 like they call in US and whatever is...
No, that's 911.
911, whatever. It's
people do 419.
When you get people who are really conscious about the work they are doing. But I wonder if people in emergency
are conscious
will really be conscious about the work they are supposed to do. I'm worried, seriously. Prevention is always better. Seriously, I say so.
Prevention is always better, and we don't. Unfortunately.
Well, let's hope that...
And another thing is we should stop building where there's pipeline right-of-way.
Where there's usually a right-of-way, of a certain number of meters. But the thing is that people encroach.
People do.
But encroach,
And
yeah.
government doesn't enforce.
But the bigger problem is with the vandals, who, for economic reasons, begin to go and look for something in the pipeline. Every other thing in Nigeria always in the pipeline. So the people take the law into their hands. Yes. But let's take another topic, coronavirus, another very important subject. Now the coronavirus outbreak is no longer a threat for Africa, some believe, but it is now a reality as more and more countries on the continent have cases. Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Guinea announced their first confirmed cases of coronavirus on Friday, as the disease has now spread to at least 18 countries in Africa. Other African countries that reported cases of the disease are Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Algeria, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Burkina Faso, the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Gabon, and Ghana. Most of the countries' totals are still in single figures on Friday. The World Health Organization, WHO, warned that Europe has now become the epicenter for the pandemic called COVID-19, reporting more daily cases than China did at the height of its outbreak. The news comes as the head of a joint WHO-China mission of experts says that the world is not ready.
When we look at how dangerous this disease is as well, I think we have to be careful looking at the China data because China know how to keep people alive from COVID. They're super committed to it, and they're making a massive investment in it as well. That's not going to be the case everywhere in the world. And as you've seen, we've had tragically lost people in, G7 countries are dying of this disease. And so it is a serious disease. And I worry sometimes as we look at the China numbers, people are going to get a false sense of security. It's the unanimous assessment of the team that they have changed the course of this outbreak. What was a rapidly escalating outbreak has plateaued and then come down faster than one would have expected if we had looked at the natural dynamics of an outbreak like this. Big question mark, how many cases have been prevented or at least delayed as a result of this action? And, rough back of the envelope, we looked at it. It's hundreds of thousands of people in China did not get COVID-19 because of this aggressive response.
Well, coronavirus there now officially declared by WHO as a pandemic.
By the way, I think you should add to those countries, Seychelles and Rwanda.
Well, but let's take a short commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please don't go away. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, Arise News Analyst, Modele Sharafa Yusuf, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos. Coronavirus. All the myths have been exploded. It's everywhere in the world now, I think except Antarctica. Africans used to say, well, it won't get here, but it's here now, and it's spreading. Modele, you were saying before we went on break that Rwanda has also recorded a case. Seychelles has also recorded a case. So you have like 20 countries, in Africa reporting different cases. And 2 Nigerians were told that died abroad. One medical doctor in England and another Italy-based Nigerian who died in Canada. So it's not as if it's something that is out there. It's something that is already here. Do you think government is responding well enough, or we need to take some more steps, learning from other jurisdictions?
Clearly, we need to take more steps. Now we've had only 2 reported cases. Luckily, one of the patients is now negative. But the pattern, it seems to be that things get worse before they get better. And the fact that the new epicenter is Europe should give us more reasons to be worried, because more Africans visit Europe than they do Asia. There are more Africans in the diaspora. There are more diasporan Africans in Europe than there are in Asia. So we can't keep them from coming back home. We can't keep people from traveling. And African countries, Nigeria, for example, is not closing its borders for economic reasons. Many African countries are not going to be able to do that. They're going to want to keep the borders open, which means that people can go in and out and bring these diseases. Another thing is that Africa is almost borderless. People travel from one African country. Intra-African travel is
fluid,
very fluid. So, and some of these entrances, some of these borders are not manned. So all of those interventions that the government, and most of these governments are also concentrating more on the airports, now on the seaports. So are we ready? I am not sure.
Should we advise government to ban all flights from Europe? Because some countries have taken the decision, no flights, no. India has effectively quarantined itself. Nobody comes in, nobody goes out.
Well, that's something that our governments will have to look at. What's the opportunity cost of that? Can we afford to keep ourselves closed off from the rest of the world? Another thing is, one of the things that I noticed is that Spain, for example, they're shutting down the country. Italy has done the same thing. France is closing its borders. Can Nigerians afford to stay home for any length of time when many people who live under $1 a day have to go out to earn a living before they can feed their children? Are we able to do all of those things? And our governments, our ministries of health, are they ready to, is government willing to spend money to combat this? Which, I mean, it's clearly a war. Are we ready to fight this war? And will our civil servants not take advantage of this and siphon the money and put into their pockets that are meant to buy?
The federal government has already earmarked close to ₦1 billion to fight the coronavirus challenge.
Correct.
Whether that is enough.
I'm talking about all African countries. I'm not just talking about Nigeria now. Nigeria has done something. Is that enough? It's another question entirely. And will civil servants and those who and political appointees allow this money to be spent for what is? Because people take advantage of all kinds of things. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter that people's lives are at risk. They just take advantage of all that kind of things. That's what I find.
Well, Professor Ariole.
Well, how I wish our airports will be well manned and well, provided for what it takes to detect COVID-19, rather. So with that, we will help ourselves because we know that our borders, our transport processes that are beyond the airport are just local issues, and how to get our people not to misbehave is not easy in Africa, we know. Hunger will always force them to go out, and that's the risk of government not being very caring about providing for its people, like Canada has done. I mean, telling people, look, you don't mind, government is ready to pay whatever it takes as long as this thing goes on for another month or whatever, so that we won't spread it in the whole Canada. And we know in Africa we don't have that, except Rwanda that is just trying to get its people in shape and not to be infected by this virus, which we see how the airport is well designed and how the protection process of the airport is presented to the world to see. How I wish other African countries will also emulate and place such measures in their airports and get people who are coming from Europe. I really don't support banning flights like America is doing to some, because in our own case, economically, we can't really support it. It will be a total breakdown of our economic might. And we know Ethiopia is not even stopping the Chinese people from coming to them. We know Ethiopia is just dependent on the Chinese in quote. And they haven't done that, and we haven't had a lot of problem from their side. So I wish Africans could emulate, either Rwanda and how Ethiopia is dealing with it to set a standard of what we call benchmarking process and get Africa out of it.
Professor Killer, Professor Ariole mentioned the economy, and there is indeed an economic dimension to this crisis. And Nigeria is beginning to feel, the pinch of it. Oil prices have collapsed.
Yes.
Oil prices, the spot price of oil is down to about $36.
35.
At a time it even lower than that, and then it rebounded. Now the Naira also,
nosedive as
due
well.
to speculative buying of dollar, also had issues during the week, but it has appreciated a little bit after 2-3 days of depreciation.
Yeah.
Now, the fundamentals of the national budget for 2020 have been turned upside down. And there are analysts who are saying, look, government also needs to take certain steps to address, this other side of it.
Yes.
So what do you think?
Well, I think the first step is to understand our reality, and that is our reality is what you call the limited options of a mendicant. We are in a situation where we're so largely dependent on external influence. Our choices are limited. That said, though, I want to say two things quickly. Number one is that we have closed our borders before. It's a question of priority. When there were coup d'etats, they closed it. It just means that the people who took power saw their access to power as important enough for them to close border without consultations or caring for the consequences. So it is doable, and we survived it. The other point, again, is that when you hear that the federal government of Nigeria allocates ₦1 billion for a crisis like this, it makes you wonder what value we put on people's lives.
Exactly.
Because I think for some states, if you want to run for governorship, 1 billion is not enough. So when you see something of this dimension and you talk about $1 billion, it makes you wonder the mindset of the people ruling us. Now, those who know me will know that I am very, very pessimistic about government. But I am very optimistic about people.
Faith.
I have faith. Well, I believe you. In Nigeria, lack of faith is a luxury nobody can permit. You either believe in God or believe in pastor or imam. You have to believe in something. But the point is, I actually believe in people. I'm optimistic about people. And I think what we need to do, those who can, I believe in community support. Those who can should try to educate their neighbors and their network. Because bad and dangerous as this virus is, reality is that it takes very simple steps to deal with it. My sister, who teaches medicine, gave us a lecture last week, and he was showing us that in reality, very simple things can go a long way.
You wash your hands with soap.
We ought to avoid shaking people, like I avoided
sanitizer.
shaking you when you came
I
today.
refuse to shake your hand.
When I saw you today.
You extended your hand, I dodged. And we did the elbow greeting.
We did the elbow greeting. So I think we just change our lifestyle and it goes a long way. Now, for the economic dimension, I think within this chaos, we need to find a way to survive while staying alive. There are things that we need to think about. This is where we are. It's not really, sounds like a cliche, but it matters. It's not what the cards were dealt that matters in life. It's how we play with it. It's how we react to it.
We're talking about people also having a sense of community.
Yes.
Alhaji Aliko Dangote of the Dangote Group pledged over 200 million naira. Maybe we'll have other Nigerians who will also make pledges and maybe give people, free sanitizers or distribute soap, and also perhaps invest in massive public enlightenment. But hear me?
And we start from your donation.
After yours. I wanted to just speak a bit about the myth.
Yeah.
Because I think I was on a plane 2 days ago. People, that whole sense that because of how it's spread in Asia, Europe, and America, and we don't have that on the continent, the belief that because the continent is hot, the heat, and then the person who brought it was an Italian, and the people who died were... So that whole thing, to your point about orientation, there's a lot that needs to go in there, because I believe that because there's that belief,
we're being nonchalant about it.
We're quite lackadaisical about how we're...
Well, and also, some people have been quoting some pastors, who have told Nigerians that coronavirus will go away in another week or so, that nobody should panic.
I think they should be arrested. I think there should be a kind of law. It's a national security. Yes.
Anointing oil.
Yes.
Yeah, I think really truly, these are little things. I mean, people who spread information that can jeopardize another people's life, it should be a crime.
Precisely. And I think, to your point, I'm a person of faith. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that God is kind and that faith or whatever. But as you are saying now, add it with, however, wash your hands and follow NCDC protocols. And exactly, that doesn't take anything.
And by the way, all the prophets and pastors and seers, this is just, we're not in Q1 yet. We're just getting to first quarter of the year. Yeah. Nobody foresaw these things. Nobody could predict.
They foresaw.
They saw the virus.
Shakings in the world.
They always say that. They've been saying that.
Reports that some pastors. Some churches did not have Sunday service today. Yeah. They advised people not to come.
Yes.
And I hope that more places of religion will also take precautions.
Places of religion are taking precautions and
In fairness,
and
yes.
educating people.
Yes.
I was at the mosque on Friday, and I know
Okay.
the sermon dwelt on how to take
Coronavirus.
care of yourself.
Oh,
how
very
to,
good, yeah.
I also know that one of the churches, the one pastored by Bishop Oko, they're doing things, to make sure that, they're not using the same cup for
communion.
Holy
Communion.
Communion. They're
Yes,
asking
yes.
that people should not shake one another, just wave. So
That's good.
yeah.
In fact, I went to a hotel yesterday for a meeting. They had to
That's
use
what it's
that
called,
temperature check.
yeah.
Yes.
you
Oh, they
know,
do that
and they
everywhere.
give sanitizer.
Very
I think that there's a lot of awareness. That's
Very
good.
important.
Very good.
I'm beginning
That's an awareness
So
of
we'll take a
something
short
demographic.
break again
And
here
the
on
world
This
is
Day Live,
watching.
the Sunday Talk Show. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. I still have with me in the studio Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, Professor Anthony Killer, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, Arise News Analyst, Modele Sharafa Yusuf, and Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos. Now, after coronavirus, let's move on to another very topical issue in Nigeria. Kano. The dethroned Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, recently regained his freedom following the verdict of a federal high court in Abuja that ordered his immediate release. Following his dethronement, there were reports that he would not be allowed into Kano again. But while fielding questions from journalists on Friday, the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, said the federal high court in Abuja ruled that the dethroned Emir can go anywhere, including Kano. But now he wants to stay in Lagos. Muhammad Sanusi II, who spoke on his dethronement, noted that his removal was so badly done that he could have challenged it in court if he wanted the throne back. To be recalled that Sanusi was dethroned on Monday by the Kano state government, which accused him of disrespecting the governor and generally of his subordination.
Yes, I'm moving on. I don't want to go back. So frankly, the truth is, if I wanted to go back, the letter was so badly written. This was so unprofessionally done. It is the easiest thing in the world to go to court. Fair hearing, High Court, just like today. It's simple, fair hearing. Did you query him? Did you tell him? Did you ask him to defend himself? Did you even call him to ask him any question? No. That's all. But no, I think we should go on with a new phase in life. Which is now for 201 years. Since Dabo started, not a single prince whose father was not Emir made it to the throne. I was the first. Every other prince after Dabo was the son of an Emir. I was the first grandson to defeat sons of Emir. So, it's a blessing that I should thank God for, and so many things to be thankful for. The structures in the palace will be there for hundreds of years, and its history. The law we codified on the Muslim family law. Kaduna State is about to pass it. Kaduna State has been delayed. Kaduna State is about to pass, will probably be the first state to pass the law. 3 years of working with scholars dealing with issues around age of marriage, domestic violence, women's rights, child rights. All these issues of street begging and arresting fathers, they're all in the law. And those are the kinds of things that are essential for transforming society. So for me, I'm proud of just the years I put in, just like I was proud of the years I put in the central bank. And I'm sure that there'll be many more things I'll be proud of doing going forward, so long as we have life and health, which is what we pray for. And so I would say at the airport, you can always say what this was an ex-president, this was an ex-governor, this was an ex-emir, an ex-commissioner. You can't say this was an ex-intellectual, this was an ex-intelligent person, this was an ex-educated person. So there are certain things that
Well, Emir Sanusi II there, various shades of opinion about the trouble in the house of Dabo in Kano. Some people even say that Emir Sanusi II didn't need the job. Some are even already campaigning for him to be president in 2023. Some feel, yes, he can contribute more to society. And since that happened, the Nigerian elite has been on his side. He has received letters. He has been given appointments. He's going to chair the Lagos State University convocation ceremony. He's also been given an international appointment. He probably will, be more of a hero, outside Kano, out of the throne, and all of that. But I don't know what you think. Let me start with you.
You want to start with me? I thought you were going to start with Yemi. Let's start with Yemi. Well, start with me. I think, generally speaking, I struggle to shed tears for Nigerian elites, whatever happens to them, because most of the time, they're products of their own misfortunes, and the misfortunes of others are always greater than their misfortunes. You're right to roll out what has happened to Sanusi right after he's been dethroned. He's wrong to say he will be referred to as former emir. He will be referred to as dethroned emir. But the point here, the system point, which I'm more interested in, is this. The dethronement process was badly done. There's no doubt about that. Because in reality, at least some of us who have an understanding of what royalty, spiritual leadership, and traditional leadership is, you will expect that for you to dethrone an emir, there will be very cogent, manifestly wrongdoing, which will border on patent abuse, misconduct, or mental insanity that everybody can see. And for you to dethrone an emir, you would think you would have gone through all the channels and people should have been saying, please dethrone him before you do so. In this case, it wasn't done. But then again, this is the Nigerian situation. You find yourself where left and right is wrong in this country a lot of times. The emir, the dethroned emir now himself, I know it's done us a favor. I believe he has not interpreted his role very well as an emir. Every Nigerian has the right to be an activist. Everybody has the right to be a vocal voice. But I think the moment you decide to take on certain roles, your attitude and the way your demeanor should respect that role. Sanusi is free to make his choice. My hero is somebody else. I know somebody personal who was approached, a vice chancellor, to ask if he would be perhaps the chairman of INEC or something similar. And he said, look at my age, look at my interest. I'll turn that down because if I take that, I will be caged. Those are the real heroes. Not people who walk into roles, get out of it and thinking, I've ticked that box, let's move on to the next step.
Well, Yemi.
Well, I think, at least from where I sit, I'm a fan, so let me put that out very clearly.
Who said that?
Oh, yeah. But I think, and I would agree with you, though, that there are constraints to the role of a traditional ruler that Mohammed Sanusi, the former emir...
Well, I'm a fan. You mean you are a fan of
Oh, I'm
Sanusi
a fan of,
II?
yes, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, yes. But I do agree with you that there are constraints that come with being a traditional ruler that he didn't abide by. And I hazard a guess that he was quite aware of that. And so it wasn't a struggle around, I need to make a choice and keep my mouth shut so that I can consult in private.
Yeah.
But he was very clear, and I think to the point we were making off camera, as he says, they won't refer to him as an ex-intelligent man. He's intelligent enough to know that when you stand at the birthday of a colleague governor with fellow governors there, and you take a very clear swipe at northern governors, and this will not be the first time, it's not within the confines of your traditional rulership. It's within the confines of a Sanusi Lamido Sanusi who was very vocal and had clear ideas. But in all of this, though, I think one thing I really do want to celebrate is that in his 6 years or so on the throne, that the law that he said Kaduna will pass and Kano has been sitting on would be a very important piece of legislature for northern Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And even if that's what he can say that he did while he was in office, the lives of girls and women in Kano and northern Nigeria will be significantly improved for generations to come. And when history looks back, yes, he had shortcomings in his role as a traditional ruler, but I think history will be kind to him that at least the knowledge that he had and the use of his active activism, if I want to use your word, he used it well for the girl child and women in northern Nigeria.
Modele, it's not only in Kano State that traditional rulers have issues. In Oshun, there was the reported case of the Oluwo of Iwo. In Ekiti State, there's also this conflict between the governor and about 12 traditional rulers. What is the matter? Is it that these governors just treat our traditional rulers as if they are errand boys?
They kind of are.
But they kind of do.
As in really, they kind of do.
The thing is, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. These people really are at the mercy of their governors. They pay them salaries, they take care of their palaces, they have to, the local government chairman has to approve their movement. And it begins to, I begin to think about it. What really is the role of the traditional ruler in this era?
Very good, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point.
And you're so right there. And I think this is debate, this is the discussion we need to have. We need to have a very calm round table to say
until
tradition and modernity.
Until 1976, when the local government laws were amended and took literally almost all of their powers. They don't even have moral power. They don't have. They can't adjudicate an issue, and that will be the end of it. The court can still overturn. What are they really there for? They're just custodians of our culture, which I think is really important, because we really stand the risk of losing our culture. Some people still need to be there to be custodians of this culture, which I think they do.
They no longer have divine rights.
But they no longer have divine rights.
But if you become a politician, how are you a custodian of culture when they politicize your role?
And that's another thing. They also sometimes tend to politicize their own roles. If they were really above partisan politics, then they have moral authority.
Exactly.
And people can look up to them as the leaders in the society. When politicians fail us, we have some people to run back to. But they sometimes compromise themselves politically. So they are vulnerable to the whims and caprices of these politicians.
Well, let me take
I feel like I agree with Professor Kila, who says he did not interpret his role very well. And as an intelligent person, when you are given a role, you should know how to go about it. This case requires moral suasion. He's not being an iconoclast. He has proved to be an iconoclast, and he carried it up to that emirate position. And now, bringing the Emir Kano Emirate into iconoclastism, if I should put it that way. It is damaging the emirate, however we see it.
How is it damaging?
How is it? How is it
in this sense that he's not taking it in a moral process of gradual, sensitizing people.
Doesn't even have to be gradual.
I have a problem with people who.
It doesn't have to be gradual.
Who can
no, it can be gradual. We have a dynamic culture.
I don't agree that when you speak truth to power, you are damaging something. No.
He's an iconoclast.
I don't agree with the fact that I think people should be able to speak truth to power.
They can.
How
we need to take a short break now. I don't think any traditional ruler should rob you of your right to free speech. I'll take a short break. Don't go away. We'll be back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. Still with me, I have Emir Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Arise News Analyst, Modele Sharafa Yusuf. And Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos. Now let's talk about generators. The Nigerian Senate on Wednesday commenced the passage of a bill to ban the use of electricity generating sets in Nigeria, as the bill in that regard sponsored by Senator Binta Enagi from Niger South Senatorial District passed first reading. The bill, which specifically seeks to prohibit anyone from importing or knowingly selling generating sets, prescribes a prison term of not less than 10 years if found guilty upon conviction as punishment. The bill, however, provides for an exception, as it states that the ban will not affect those that are into essential services, like hospitals, nursing homes, and healthcare facilities, airports, railway station services, elevators, escalators, research institutions, and other such facilities that require 24 hours electric power supply. According to the bill, approval for exclusion shall be obtained from the minister in charge of power, who shall brief the Federal Executive Council quarterly on approvals granted. Professor Ariole, somebody told me that while that conversation around this bill was going on, that the Senate itself was running on a generator.
Beautiful.
what's your reaction?
No. It's a law that will really end with the paper that it is written on. It cannot just go beyond that paper. Nigerians know, and the economic wheel of Nigeria is now run on generator, and we know that because we have petrol as primary resource in Nigeria, people are also benefiting from using the petrol with generator to get economic wheel of Nigeria turning. And now you come and you want to institute a law that will stop people from using generator. That is killing completely the economy that is at today running at about 30% of its capacity. Now a whole 200 million people willing to work and are in need of what to do, and they are now left to be working at 30% of their capacity, and you are now going to create more problem for them. I think I just feel that they are targeting a politician. I wouldn't name the politician here. They know,
Really?
you know, and it's a big importer of generator set and whatever. People know about that. Unless they have been sent to target him. You know, that's my feeling. It's not possible. The law is just childish law.
These, I'm trying to. So, what's the name of the senator again?
Senator Bima Enagi.
He's from
Niger
Enagi.
side.
Now, well, I'll go to Senator Enagi, but instead of conspiracy theory, an Italian song came to my mind. There's a song called C'è qualcosa che non va. There's something that is not fine. That is the title of that song, and it's an old Italian song. That is an opera. That's what actually came to my mind when I heard it. There's something that is not fine in the minds of people in these countries, and the Senate is a place. Now, for the benefit of listeners or people watching us, Senator
Bima
Enagi graduated as a quantity surveyor, and he worked in the banks. He has no record of anything to do with electricity nor generator, and he's sitting making laws on it. For the benefit of the senator himself, his Wikipedia page has grammatical errors that needs to be corrected. Now, I say this to understand the kind of people who are making bills that guide the life of reasonable, hardworking citizens across this country. This is a mindset of people who have grown up to regiment, to think of curtailing and zoning things, instead of making things, instead of providing issues. They think they can regulate people's life rather than take away the problems that is inhibiting us to live well. How dare you, in your right sense of mind, wake up to the nation and say, let us ban generator in Nigeria? How dare you? The country should be talking about how to fix power. They should be talking about how to perhaps make made in Nigeria generators.
Exactly.
To say that, I think we shouldn't be angry with this senator. We should reach out to him and find out what really is on his mind. This could be a cry for help, for all you know. And we should really take it serious. You know, with all the empathy and Christian Islamic humanity in us, to reach out to him and say, what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, let me piggyback on that. This is what I was looking for in my phone. Someone had sent a message via WhatsApp now, and it's meant to be humorous, so do take it in stride. There are 3 senators representing Niger State in the National Assembly. One is sponsoring hate speech bill. Second one is sponsoring social media bill. Third one is sponsoring generator ban bill. Are the psychiatrists in Niger State on strike?
Arise. This is the moment you say, arise, Niger State. Arise, Niger.
Anyway,
I think it's an attention-seeking bill.
Attention-seeking, really.
Because really, what are the bases for for this call?
Maybe it's a cry for help, I say.
cries for help. How?
Yes.
How?
Because if that law, if that bill were to pass through, and the law were to be enforced, I think we will all be guilty.
It really is laughable. It is laughable. I mean, how can you sit down and say ban all generators when power is one of the biggest problems that we have?
I have a list, like a long list of exceptions.
And he hasn't. Well,
And you want, and those exceptions are not automatic.
If that bill
You need to
were ever
apply
passed,
for it.
I have a feeling that people will start living in elevators so that they can continue to enjoy air conditioning.
And I think one thing should be said as well for politicians, moderators, is that they should care about their loved ones. I mean, this man would have children. What would people say to their children on the playground? I mean, this was a major case in Eton. That the politicians' children, there was a system in place to say, no, don't pick on them because of what their fathers do in parliament. And we should start thinking of that. People who live public life should think of their loved ones, how they will be treated for their pronouncements.
Well, I think that, instead of lawmakers coming up with frivolous and vexatious bills, they should think more in terms of solutions.
Yes,
exactly.
There is crisis in the power sector in Nigeria, both in terms of generation, transmission, and even distribution. And that conversation is alive, and to think that someone doesn't think that that is an area of intervention.
And Baz, you should read your article.
About
you should read the piece you did 3 weeks ago, where you were talking about this distribution thing.
So that's where the challenge lies. But we should hope and expect that this particular bill will not survive. By the time it goes to second reading and goes to public hearing,
but that's the frustrating thing about the National Assembly. Yeah, wasting time. So now we spent, I don't know how many minutes talking about it now. Other people have talked about it. It's made headline news. So just distracting, what did you call it? Vexation. Just a bloody waste of time and money, really.
Anyway, I think on that note, we'll have to close this conversation for today and wait till next Sunday when we'll take on other issues. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next week.